Good morning, it's November 1st, and this is To My Little Friends. Well, we've all watched the huge demonstrations supporting Palestine and accusing Israel of being responsible for the current war in Gaza. It's been especially prevalent on college campuses. And for the most part, college administrators have been silent on the protests. They were finally forced to say something when donors start pulling their money. Nothing gets a university president more agitated than hearing some of the top financial donors are withdrawing their financial support. After Harvard students blamed Israel for Hamas's atrocities, the global backlash was so fierce that the university's president, Claudine Gay, released a video statement that in some ways proved even more puzzling. Quoting her, "Our university rejects the harassment or intimidation of individuals based on their beliefs, and our university embraces a commitment to free expression. That commitment extends even to views that many of us find objectionable, even outrageous," end quote. Wait a minute. Talk about hypocrisy. How many conservative speakers have been denied the ability to speak at Harvard? This statement was surely news to the scholars with unpopular views at Harvard who have been sanctioned by administrators, boycotted by students, and slandered by the Crimson student newspaper. And it was certainly news to anyone who follows the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression's annual analysis of threats to free speech on campus. These protesters are demanding that Israel cease their invasion of Gaza. They chant Palestinian slogans like Palestine from the river to the sea. I doubt most of them realize they're calling for the elimination of Israel and the killing of all Jews in that land. But since they are ignorant of the real facts, they wrap themselves in Palestinian flags and march on. But here's a question that nobody seems to want to ask. Who's paying for all this? How many of these protesters happen to have a Palestinian flag in their possession? They all seem to have them now. And who's paying for the large banners and posters that they march with? You can bet this is being financed by some left-wing group who sees this war as an opportunity to fan the flames of anti-Semitism. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has responded in the strongest terms. He asked those demanding a ceasefire if the United States would not have done anything after the attack in Pearl Harbor. He asked if the United States should have turned the other cheek when terrorists attacked on 9/11. But the mainstream media seems to be buying into the ceasefire rhetoric, and suddenly they're reporting on any action by the Israeli military. They're quick to believe what Hamas says, even after being hoodwinked by Hamas claiming an Israeli rocket hit a hospital. The New York Times blared that as a headline and later had to admit they were wrong. Turns out the rocket was a misfire by terrorists from within Gaza. It also landed in a parking lot next to the hospital, and the casualties were nowhere near the number Hamas tried to claim. But that has not stopped the media. In the Washington Post this week, they took the word of a journalist, Bashar Tlaib, want to guess which side of the war he's on, that an Israeli tank had fired on a car with an old man in the front seat, and in the back seat a woman with children. Now, this might have happened, but how many times have we seen these terrorists drive up in automobiles or small trucks loaded with a bomb with the intent to kill as many Israelis or just innocent civilians as possible? Another question that needs to be asked of both the media and the protesters: where is the call for Hamas and Hezbollah to stop firing rockets into Israel? I have to assume they think that's acceptable behavior. But the most horrifying news came later. The family of German-Israeli woman believed to have been abducted by Hamas from the Nova Music Festival had been told her remains had been found by the IDF. Shani Luke's mother, Ricarda Luke, told German television channel that unfortunately we received the news today that my daughter is no longer alive. And according to Hebrew media, the Israeli search and rescue service Zaka took Luke's family that a bone from the base of her skull had been retrieved and identified as belonging to Shani. This woman was dragged around Gaza half naked and unconscious in the back of a Hamas truck. Perhaps all these protesters, especially the women, should be forced to watch that video. Even better, all the women marching out there who have pink hair and use pronouns like them and they should be told to go live in Gaza and see how that works out for them. See if they like being forced to wear a head covering and being told they're owned by some man. But still they called for a ceasefire, and it took someone like Hillary Clinton to lecture these idiots. In a speech at the James A. Baker Institute for Public Policy, she took on those demanding a ceasefire. Quote, "People calling for a ceasefire now don't understand Hamas. That's not possible. It would be a gift to Hamas because they would spend whatever time there was a ceasefire in effect rebuilding their armaments, creating stronger positions to be able to fend off an eventual assault by the Israelis," end quote. And she's not alone in trying to explain the reality of those demanding a ceasefire. Just about every foreign policy expert and military expert has said that Israel has to take the appropriate action now to crush Hamas, or they'll be fighting them again and again. And have you noticed not one of these idiots have condemned Hamas and other terrorist groups for starting the conflict and for firing rockets into Israel on a daily basis? I've not seen them marching demanding Hamas free any hostages they took. Let's be honest. These protesters have been looking for something to protest since the BLM movement kind of fizzled out. They view Israel as a nation of white people oppressing Palestine, a nation of brown people, so it allows them to get enraged and feel good about themselves. Well, the public shouldn't be buying it then. We're not buying it now. It's time to figure out Hamas is a terrorist group and nothing else. It's been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, hit the subscribe button. And if you have a comment, happy to hear it.